Hello and welcome to SimCast, the higher education simulation podcast. My name's Tony Jeremy. I'm the lead for simulation-based education here at UEA Norwich.
Hello there, everybody. My name's Lawrence Hill, and I'm the chair of the simulation group in the School of Health Sciences at UEA Norwich. A very warm welcome back to the podcast. So, Tony, on today's episode, we're actually going to be talking about our reflections on our in-house simulation instructors course. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that is. That's correct. Yeah, so we're going to be talking that a little bit more. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like. Equally so, if you don't like the video, give us a dislike, but let us know in the comments why, because we're always keen to improve. To keep up to date with all things sim, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to check that notification bell. So Lawrence, the simulation instructors course, we've mentioned it a couple of times on different podcasts that we've done. What exactly is it?
Right. So our simulation instructors course is basically an introductory course to everything that someone would need to know coming from essentially a position of being a novice or an advanced beginner in simulation, and going from there to be able to design, deliver, and kind of participate within a simulation centre. Okay.
And so that's something that we've developed, and we thought about having a blended learning component, so some online learning first that participants have to do before they attend a one-day course. And actually, we've got a special announcement to do with that at the end of the episode. So stay tuned for an announcement at the end of the episode, because we've got something exciting that we're looking forward to bringing to you.
But yeah, so the simulation instructor course is kind of everything that you'd need to know to become an effective simulation educator. And that pre-course learning that you're talking about there, we cover things like, what is simulation? We talk about creating a psychological safety for learners. Who are the simulation faculty? So a kind of good grounding for people to get a kind of overarching sense of what simulation is and how it's done.
And in previous episodes, we've talked about people who have been perhaps scared of technology and the technical component with simulation. So is it fair to say that the Sim Instructors course looks at that, or what's kind of the ethos of what we've been trying to achieve?
Yeah, we've been quite keen, haven't we, from the beginning to make simulation as kind of inclusive as possible for people who may have preconceived ideas that it's, that mannequin, that ladle mannequin kind of face. And actually, we've tried to make it clear that simulation is a pedagogical approach. It's a technique and not a technology. Although technology may play an important part in some simulations.
Yeah, and we've had some people, and we will talk about this a bit later on, who've come on the course, and they were surprised at the lack of technology that we used in the actual face-to-face training day.
Yeah, and that was an intentional act, wasn't it? We did that on purpose.
Yeah, but also it gave them some ideas of and challenged their preconceptions of what they thought simulation was.
Yeah, and it was credit to the people that signed up, really, because we've had a good mix of fairly experienced simulation educators and some people who are completely simulation naive, and we're kind of coming in and I really appreciated them putting themselves forward in that way to actually say, do you know what? I might be an experienced academic, I might be an experienced clinician in my field, but this is something new to me, and I can see that it's important in the sort of landscape of healthcare education, and I want to be involved.
So that's a nice segue really into, I guess, a little bit of a conversation that we need to have about why we set this course up.
Yeah.
So just talk us through kind of what the landscape was like when we were thinking, okay, we need to do some kind of in-house training for our staff and our academics who are going to be providing simulation moving forwards.
Yeah, no, that context I think is important, because although here at UEA Norwich, the School of Health Sciences existed for some time, in 2021, the building that we're currently in, the Edith Cavell building, had a significant upgrade in terms of its kind of function as a simulation centre. And a large investment from NHS England, or HE as they were at the time, meant that we greatly improved the surroundings, i.e. the kind of the space and the equipment that was available. And it became quite clear to us that in order to ensure that this kind of complex system works effectively, we had to make sure we had the information systems, the kind of knowledge and the understanding, but also we brought the team with us in terms of upskilling them to be effective simulation educators.
And at the same time, we have professional regulatory bodies like the NMC who are saying we see the value of simulation as a pedagogical tool and ethos towards healthcare education, you need to integrate that more into your curricula. So we've had a massive shift in terms of our resources and facilities, but also a push in terms of curriculum development.
Yeah, you could almost call it a political drive, you know, that it's a kind of statutory, small p, a kind of a statutory regulatory change that meant that nursing and midwifery programs could increase, or that were required to increase, the simulation component. And with that comes a need to ensure that you deliver it to a high standard.
And I think we can sort of speak on behalf of some of our colleagues when we say that there was probably a little bit of head scratching along the way, thinking this is not being forced on us, but you know, we're going to have to think a little bit differently about that and how we're going to integrate this into a curricula. And like you say, we've got some very experienced people with experienced clinical backgrounds and very experienced academics, but perhaps not the most experienced when it comes to delivering simulation-based education.
No, and a bit apprehensive about it. But also, aside that apprehension, quite a lot of excitement. You know, when you have the sort of luxury of this new facility, actually, you know, people were interested and they want to get involved. So I think it's about meeting that need for people who can see the value for developing their educational programs by embedding simulation into it, and who want to know how to do that in a way that is, you know, achieves constructive alignment with the learning outcomes and the assessment, but that you know, does so in a way which is actually beneficial and enjoyable for learners as well.
So where do we go from there?
Well, what did we do? So we started thinking about what a simulation course might entail.
Yeah.
So we sort of sat around and gave it some thought and looked at the literature, and identified that we had to address the simulation structure itself. We had to think about the key players in simulation, and you know, ranging from the kind of technical support side right the way through to the simulation writers and facilitators. We had to think about the students and what the literature is saying about developing psychological safety and encouraging that. Obviously, we needed to think about facilitation and debrief, so we embedded some of that into the learning materials. And I wanted to give people a kind of hands-on experience of both skills teaching, because that's an important kind of in the kind of taxonomy of simulation teaching strategies. We wanted to do some skills teaching, but also do some more kind of involved, fully immersive, interactive simulation training. Yeah.
And we also were mindful, actually, we've got quite a big school when it comes to a faculty. And so there are simulation instructor or similar training courses available, aren't they?
Yeah.
So some are provided by some of the companies that provide some of the kit and technology. There are other courses, and
like the Resuscitation Council UK's general instructor course has like a simulation-based education component, and I think that's a kind of offers quite a good grounding in simulation theory.
It's great.
So that was kind of part of the inspiration, and then there are you know, master's degree programs in healthcare and medical simulation, such as the University of Hertfordshire and Ken Spearpoint, who we're hoping to get on as a guest in a future episode. So there's quite a growing body of training available.
But it made sense to do something in-house, didn't it? Because it means that we can run a course or a program relatively frequently, and to capture our academics. And I guess part of the structure of our program is looking at that kind of unique group of people who are very experienced in terms of academia.
Yeah.
Which, if you look at, for example, the Resource Council's General Instructors course, it's less of a focus on that.
Oh, it's much more focused on clinicians.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And they've got a lot of clinical knowledge, but again, the area they lack is that simulation-based education. So we've got some unique people who come onto the program in terms of their needs and requirements from a simulation point of view.
Yeah, and we're recognising that this is happening across the country as well. Simulation centres are popping up, and we anticipate that there will be people in a similar position to us. And that's partly why we set up this podcast, because actually, you know, there is a community of people who are becoming more capable of delivering simulation.
Yeah.
But actually, we wanted to make this course and set it up in such a way that it could be useful to the people who are within our school and faculty, but also so that we could invite others to come and participate in our course in the future.
So the I forgot what I was going to say now.
Well, why don't we talk about who we've had on it so far?
Yeah, okay.
Because we talked a little bit about what the course is, but to illustrate how broad the range of practitioners that we've had on this course are, we've had some paramedics from the paramedic science team, operating department practitioners, some members from your academic team,
and those both of those groups of academics are probably more used to doing clinical simulation than some of our other colleagues.
Yeah. There's been
it's where those traditional kind of resuscitation and those kind of technical skills and where simulation has sort of grown and evolved through healthcare education previously.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a long history of scenario work in particularly in my field in paramedics. But yeah, so we had some people from that. We've had midwives and we've had nursing lecturers from a variety of professional backgrounds as well, haven't we?
Yeah. So again, going back to your point about the inclusivity, we wanted to make sure that we provided a program that was applicable to the, 12 or 13 different healthcare professions that we support and provide education for within the school.
Yeah.
So we have physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, dietetics.
And all of them have come and participated in the course as well.
Yeah, and certainly for me, one thing that's been really refreshing is some of the feedback from those individuals about how much they enjoyed the program and like I said earlier, how it kind of in some ways caught them off guard a bit.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I've got a couple of the comments here actually. A couple of them, people will appreciate how it all fits in and how it all fits together, and that's because in the course we make reference to constructive alignment and ensuring that the simulation is situated within the wider curriculum and how you go about doing that and the construction of effective learning outcomes. So that was good. People were talking about appreciating the power of debrief and of briefing for both staff and students. So I thought that was really nice that we really landed some messages around the importance of the briefing, but also
good structure and
the good structure, and the importance of that debrief for really teasing out and in many cases deepening the learning. So
the course itself is an online component. There are essentially 6 videos to watch on different topics. The idea is that provides the participants with the pre-learning that they need so that when they arrive on the one-day face-to-face program, they have a better understanding and equipped. And we've done it in a way so that, again, a complete novice to simulation-based education should be able to then approach the face-to-face content with a little bit of prerequisite knowledge.
But you know what? Also, that people who do have experience in simulation-based education have still got things that they will take away.
And modelling best practice so that there is a new threshold for the school in terms of the standard and ability if you're going to be facilitating one of these simulation sessions.
Yeah. So there's that online component, and then the face-to-face component of the day actually includes quite a number of different workshops, doesn't it? From using a complex systems model to plan a skills or simulation session.
We start off with some really sound educational theory around simulation. And again, one of the things I think I quite like about it is it's also applicable to other areas of healthcare and higher education and pedagogy as well.
Yeah.
We do some stuff on...
situating simulation in the context of practice-based learning and talking about Kolb's experiential learning cycle and unpacking that and discussing it really. It's quite discursive, the first half of the day, really.
It generates some great discussion, doesn't it? We do a kind of a learning package on how to plan simulation using complex systems theory, and we get people to think about a relatively simple skill. And we purposely picked some mandatory training, I think it is, isn't it? So again, it's applicable to anyone regardless of what profession, and then how they would think about it. And it's really interesting when they do some group work, how you can look at something as simple as basic life support and there's completely different approaches to it depending on the background, user group, student number, that kind of thing.
And then we have a kind of a fun workshop around skills tuition and Peyton's 4-stage approach, which is kind of a little bit abstract. But that
we
helps
won't let
land
the cat out of the bag.
No, but it's a fun activity, and it's
a really simple activity that gets people thinking. But it's really nice activity to show you that sort of Dreyfus model of skill acquisition, going from a complete novice to advanced beginner to competent proficiency. And again, we kind of reiterate the importance of the instructors understanding that their learners, particularly if they're undergraduate year one learners, are going to be a bit clunky and all over the place.
And that kind of ethos of understanding the positionality of the learner and that sense of shared vulnerability and kind of mutual learning is really central to everything that we do on the course. We think that's really important to kind of role model that and kind of engender that philosophy throughout, because that really is at the core of it.
We hammer home the Centre for Medical Education's basic assumption from the get-go. And again, it's just that kind of little tidbit that you can just say, include these in your sessions, you know, as best practice. Have that as a great starting point.
But some of the other things that some of the participants on the course had said, that I love the fact that they drew on the power of the unintended learning outcomes. That was really nice. That as an outcome from the course, that was a piece of feedback that was given to us, because, you know, that is, for me, like, often some of the most powerful learning that takes place in simulation is the stuff that you weren't expecting to happen. So that was really cool. And the just some of the positivity that came out, I'm going to give it a whirl. Simulation doesn't have to be all bells and whistles. So and the importance of creating effective learning outcomes. You know, these were really profound pieces of feedback, but also realizations from the learners that they'd made on the course. So we were really, you know, talking of reflections on it, we were really really pleased and quite proud, I think, in a way that it had done that, because we didn't know how it was going to land when we did it.
How well it would be received. And again, I think it's fair to say that some people are a little bit more cynical about simulation-based education and whether it fits into their own curriculum or not. There's an element of change management that needs to take place. And again, sometimes these misunderstandings about how you provide simulation. And to some people, I think it wasn't until they actually experienced it on the day that they recognized that. So, for example, in the afternoon, we do use simulation to teach simulation. So we do some simulated scenarios, and we thought, okay, well, what's the best way that we can use a simulation scenario that applies to everyone, that doesn't, you know, restrict anyone? So we actually use personal advisor conversations so one person would play the role of the academic, one person plays the role of a student, because that would apply to anyone in our school. And again, it doesn't use technology, but it uses an element of role play and a discursive element. And we do one simulation in the room with everyone watching, and we do another one remotely, then using the SMOTS camera technology that we've got in the building to stream it remotely, so that people can watch in the debrief room to again compare and contrast those different approaches. Because, like we said before, we've got a new centre, but it means with the new physical surroundings and technology and equipment, there are different techniques which you could use. So it's that learning curve there.
Yeah, and so that was partly about saying there are different ways that you can deliver simulation, but it was also partly about
the power of non-technical skills and communication in simulation, rather than just shoving cannulas and needles and lines.
This is how you put a tube
mannequins
into another tube. It was much more about the kind of complex psychological, sociological endeavour that simulation is. You could see the little light bulbs switching on, couldn't you? People thinking, I might be able to use this in a way that I hadn't considered before in my teaching. Which was exactly what we were hoping that some people would get out of it. So what are we going to do about it now then? So we're pleased we've run this course a few times. So what's next?
So we're continuing to run the course. We've had kind of various experiences, haven't we? We've had a couple of courses which have been very modestly attended with only a handful of people. And we've had courses with, you know, upwards of 15, 20 people. So we're going to continue to run the courses primarily for in-house development of our staff. But we also recognise that there might be people externally, whether it's our own practice partners, whether it's other people interested in simulation, who might want to see the value of undertaking a course like this. Yeah.
And I've had a little bit of interest already, actually. There's been a few people that have got in touch from, you know, one service or another to say, oh, that sounds cool. I've checked out the podcast. Sounds like, you know, I'd be really interested to participate. And that leads us to our special announcement for this episode, doesn't it?
So the online component that we provide for the Sim Instructors course, we are re-recording as podcast episodes for SimCast, special episodes, and we're going to be providing it free to everyone who subscribes to the channel. Well,
Yeah.
you mean you don't have to subscribe, you can just watch it, but it helps if you do subscribe.
Yeah, please do subscribe. And also thank you to everyone that already has subscribed. It's been great to get your engagement, and some of the comments that we've had as well have been really good. So
Yeah.
if you think that the online component of the simulation instructors course here at UEA is something you'd be interested, do please drop us a comment, and we'll get in touch, and hopefully in due course we can maybe get you on a course in future.
Yeah. So the next steps are more simulation instructors course. We've also talked about, okay, well, do we need to do more education and training following that? And again, what I don't want with some of our academics is to come to this one-day course to think it's interesting and then perhaps not use the skills. So one of the things we're looking to develop is, if programs have got simulation in it, we can take those scenarios and use it as kind of a educational development, and so we can test the scenarios, but also get people to brush up their facilitator skills after they've been on the
simulation
course.
CPD, simulation peer
exactly,
review,
that kind of thing.
That kind of stuff. I think it would be really nice to.
And of course, if someone's
that.
writing new simulation, it's an opportunity to then test that with a group of academics who should have a little bit more experience in running simulation.
Indeed. So that really brings us to an end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening in. Do like and subscribe to the podcast, particularly if you are keen to stay in touch for our upcoming special episodes. But thank you very much for listening in, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.